What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego back with some more boxing. So it looks like UK legendary fighter Carl Froch is expected to pick his opponent in the coming weeks. Many people believe he's going to pick either Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. for a big fight out in Las Vegas or possibly a George Groves rematch. Promoter Eddie Hearn had this to say: "The Groves fight is the biggest financially, but I don't think Carl feels he needs it. The public wants it, but as far as he's concerned, he has beaten Groves. For me, in my opinion, I think I would rather see a George Groves rematch. Groves fought a good fight up until the questionable/controversial stoppage, and he was ahead on all three judges' scorecards. I also think Carl Froch is a great fighter, a true warrior, whose legacy is coming to a close. So, in my opinion, he should consider making things right in the George Groves fight and ridding all the doubts that took place, because, again, a lot of people thought it was a controversial, questionable stoppage that shouldn't have taken place. Otherwise, he'll always have an asterisk by that win. As far as him fighting Chavez Jr., I think that fight can happen in the future, but Jr.'s in the same position with Brian Vera. He has to kind of rid the doubts and set the record straight, so to speak, in his rematch with Brian Vera. A lot of people don't think he should have won that fight against Brian Vera, so they're really in the same boat. To me, a George Groves rematch, it is a big fight financially. The UK will support that, both fighters being from the UK. I think the fans will get involved and support that. There's controversy. So anytime there's like a rivalry where it's kind of unfinished business, you can even title it that: Unfinished Business, George Groves, Carl Froch rematch, part 2. I think it'll do good numbers. Carl Froch has a lot of star power. Plus, George Groves earned a lot of fans in his fight, because at the end, even though he lost, the crowd was booing Froch as he was speaking, even though when the fight started, they were pro Carl Froch. And that just goes to show you how fickle boxing fans are. You come in liking a guy and rooting for a guy, and by the end, you're rooting for the opponent. But it happens, and the way it played out, I understand that. It's not like they're being bandwagon. They just feel it was unjust how it ended. So I really feel that's a good option. And like I said, Chavez Jr. fight can still take place later down the line if he gets past George Groves in a more convincing fashion. And some people will argue like, oh, it was convincing because it was a stoppage. But if you really look at the point of stoppage, the ref had Groves kind of in a headlock, and Carl Froch was just swinging for the fences, trying to get his man out of there. And he knew it. He knew he had him buzzed or hurt, and he was trying to capitalize and do away with it. And what else can you do when you know you're behind in the fight? Carl Froch did exactly what he was supposed to do. So it's not really a beef with Carl Froch. It's more or less the ref in the fight. I don't agree with that call. I would like to see Chavez Jr. rebuild a little bit. Like I said, avenge the Brian Vera loss. If he can do something like knock Brian Vera out. Brian Vera is a tough warrior, tough competitor, and he kind of has a game plan, knows what to expect in the rematch. So if Chavez Jr. can go back in there, refocus, make weight, not have any problems like that, and then knock Brian Vera out, I would be impressed with him setting the record straight. And then, like I said, Carl Froch, if he can go in there and duplicate what he did, if he feels he won fair and square and he's the better fighter, if he can duplicate that with George Groves in the controversy, set the record straight, kind of like Sean Porter versus Julio Diaz. Sean Porter versus Julio Diaz, the first fight ended in a draw. The second one, Porter blew Diaz out of the water. It wasn't really even close, in my opinion. So if Carl Froch feels he's a better man, like Sean Porter felt he was a better man and had a bad night or off night, or wasn't really acclimated to Julio Diaz, maybe underestimated him, didn't know what to expect, then Porter came back, refocused, had a solid training camp, and it showed when he rematched him, because he by far beat Julio Diaz. So I think that's a good plan for Carl Froch. Like I said, his legacy is coming to a close, and I think he wants to end on a high note. As far as a high note, he's barked up the tree and said he wants an Andre Ward fight. I really don't see him beating Andre Ward, to be perfectly honest. And like I said, I like Carl Froch. He used to live in England, so it's nothing against UK fighters or Europeans or anything, because I know a lot of you guys like to come out the fucking woodwork. But Andre Ward beat him convincingly in the first fight with one hand. His hand was like injured or fractured, broke, whatever it was. So he was a one-handed fighter and still beat Froch. So since that, a lot has changed. Andre Ward obviously has had fights since, so he's got whatever seasoning from those fights with Chad Dawson, Edwin Rodriguez. Plus, more significantly, he had his shoulder rehab surgery, and he's went through the rehabilitation process, and he's back, and he's already had one fight since then. So I think he's just sharp. I think he would just puzzle Carl Froch. Froch tends to do better against guys like Mikhail Kessler, someone you pretty much know what he's going to do. Kessler's a good fighter as well, but not as enigmatic as Andre Ward. So that's just my personal opinion. I don't see Carl Froch beating Andre Ward. His best bet to beat him would be to fight in UK and, you know what I mean, have some bullshit happen. But skill-wise, I just don't see him beating Andre Ward currently. That's just my opinion. What do you guys want to see next for Carl Froch? Great fighter, hell of a fighter. He's trying to close the chapter of his book. What do you guys want to see him entertain next? As always, hate, comment, or subscribe. Till next video, it's Ego signing off.